Welcome back to NY Flight Jets Talk. On this stream, we are joined by Jets writer for the New York Post, Mr. Brian Costello. Mr. Costello, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Connor. Please call me Brian or Kaz, whatever you want.
All right. So, Senior Bowl just wrapped up. First
Yep.
time on the show. Hopefully not the last. Thank you, Kaz, for joining us.
Yep.
And so with the Senior Bowl wrapping up, who do you think some prospects the Jets will target in this coming draft?
Well, Connor, here's the thing. It's February, right? So the Jets haven't even really sat down and had all their meetings yet. That really starts now. They'll be back in the office on Monday. They'll start talking free agency. They don't even really talk draft yet too much. It's just kind of early in the process. But I think they're going to take a tackle, and we all know the top
Yes.
tackles' names here, and there's going to be some movement, right? The combine will make some people move up and down. Pro days, there's going to be stuff that comes out in March and April that makes them move around. But I definitely think they have to take a tackle. They've got to get that position solidified. It's not easy. It's not hard, I should say, to identify the weaknesses on this team, and tackle is number one in my book. So I think that whether they stay at 10 or not, they're going to take a tackle.
I 100% agree. I think they're definitely going to take a tackle. We need at least two new starters on this offensive line. Two new starters at a minimum, probably three. Staying with the offensive line, do you think we keep Tippmann at center going into 2024?
I do. He was drafted as a center. I know he played a little bit of guard last year early on, but I think they liked what they saw from him at center as the season went on. And I think if you look at it, Connor, the offensive line got better toward the end of the season. And I think part of that was Tippmann getting more comfortable at center. And I think this was a good year of learning for him. And now I think he's going to be the long-term starter at center. And, they could move AVT around. They can move him guard or tackle. And then I agree with you. They got to find two starters. And I think the fifth spot, could be a Carter Warren or a Max Mitchell or somebody like that. Like, you don't need 5 stars, Connor, on the offensive line.
Yes.
You kind of need 4 really good starters, and then you can plug the fifth guy in and live with it. The problem for the Jets in recent years, especially when the injuries have mounted, is they've had like one good starter, and it's hard to live like that on the offensive line.
I agree. A lot of people are saying Tippmann might get moved to guard. I'd rather just keep him at center. He
Yeah.
had a great year at center for the Jets. AVT, I think we could try him out at tackle in the preseason and see how he does. He got injured at tackle, but I don't really think that has anything to do with it. I think I don't know. He's been a right guard.
Yeah.
I personally think we keep him at guard going into 2024.
Yeah, I think what they'll do, Connor, is see what the options are in free agency and the draft and see what they end up with, right? So if they feel like there's a really good guard out there that they want to sign or draft, then I think you could go, okay, AVT goes to right tackle. If they feel like there's a better tackle out there, then you keep AVT a guard. You're really not going to be able to experiment with him much in preseason, though, Connor, I think, because he's coming off an Achilles. So my guess is he's probably not going to be ready until right when the season starts. I think I definitely don't think he's going to play in preseason games. Maybe he starts practicing, the week of the third preseason game, something like that. But you're not really going to be. They know what they have in him. I think the key there, Connor, is they feel like moving him around contributed to his injuries, like going back and forth. So they're gonna want to lock him into one position. And I think it's you look at it and go, what are our best options? And if the best option out there is tackle, then ABT can play guard and vice versa. So I think that's how they're going to play it.
I feel like if we moved AVT to tackle, I think someone to look out maybe that we will sign is maybe Kevin Zeitler. I feel like is a name to look out for, maybe a new guard. With the guard position, I know it's early, but I really like Zach Zinter in the 3rd round out of Michigan. I think he's a very solid guard. He got hurt, but that's why we're picking him in the 3rd round, not the 2nd or the 1st. Speaking of the 2nd round pick, would you rule out the possibility of us tagging Bryce Huff and then trading him and recouping a 2nd round pick for him?
Yeah, I would rule that out, Connor, because I understand Bryce Huff's a very good player and Jets fans love him, right? But
yes,
he's not if you're looking at this from, let's say you're a fan of the Denver Broncos, right? and Bryce Huff comes up. Are you going to sell like that? You're going to trade picks and pay this guy? Like that's a lot for Bryce Huff. He had a good year this year. He's a good player, but like you do that kind of thing for like Nick Bosa, right? Like if you're giving up picks and a huge contract, this guy better be like on his way to the Hall of Fame kind of player. I'd be shocked if they did that with Bryce Huff. It's a fascinating negotiation, but I don't think they're going to use the franchise tag on him. But we're going to see how that goes. We'll learn more over the next month with that.
Interesting. Like, so the franchise tag for a edge rusher is about $22.5 million,
Yeah.
I believe. I personally, I would just like to tag him. I I mean, long term, I guess would work, but who else do you think we'd use that tag on?
The only other guy I think the tag is a possibility for is Greg Zerline, and
Oh,
I think
that
that'd be
was yeah.
yeah, I think that'd be as a placeholder. Like they did that with Nick Folk a while back. Like you just do it and then figure out if they can't figure out a contract with him, then you have 4 more months to figure out a contract. But I don't think Bryce Huff's going to get 22 or 23 million dollars a year. So that's what you start there, and then if you do the franchise tag and you're paying him, you're paying him all that cash right then. That's not like a phony money contract where you're spreading stuff out. You're paying him this year. That's a lot of money. I'm not sure they're going to want to do that. So, yeah, I would think Zerline would be the other candidate for a franchise tag. But if they can get something done with him early, they won't have to do that.
I agree. Zach Rosenblatt came on the show on Thursday, and he said, "Defensive line is not one of our needs."
No.
I agree with him. I'd rather spend that money. I mean, I feel like every position on the offense needs an upgrade. Backup quarterback, a backup running back. It's right now. It's only Izzy and Brees Hall. I don't believe Izzy could fill that role. Wide receiver, we need a wide receiver 2 and probably 3. Tight end, I think Uzama's might be a June 1 cut. We need a tight end, a veteran type of guy who could come in.
Yeah.
Offensive line, we need 2, 3 new starters. I think it's all offense. So I'd rather take the money we were going to pay Bryce Huff long term and maybe invest in a better solid tackle in free agency maybe.
I
Maybe
hear
like
you,
a
but
Tyron Smith.
edge rusher's a premium position, right? And you
Mhm.
develop the guy. So it's tough to let him walk out of the building. And then the other part of this is the head coach is a defensive guy, right? And he is going to be into Joe Douglas's ear. Robert Saleh likes to have rotation of 4 edge rushers. His philosophy is you can't have enough of those guys, right? That's the secret sauce to his defense is that pressure up front. And, I think he would take second tier cornerbacks and defensive backs, but he wants premium edge rushers. So it's going to be fascinating because you make some points, right? But I also think it's going to be tough for them to let an edge rusher walk out of the building, especially one they found, they signed him as an undrafted free agent and then they developed him. To say goodbye to that will be tough.
I agree, but also staying on defense, we need safety. I mean, we have Chuck Clark, Ashton Davis, and Jordan Whitehead. All 3 are free agents. We have Tony Adams, and then basically, really, that's it. Who we
Yeah.
have under contract at the safety position. I personally, I want to sign Chuck Clark and Ashton Davis back, and I feel like we let Jordan Whitehead walk. I know we're not big, like a lot of fans aren't big on Jordan Whitehead, but I feel like the Jets really, really like Whitehead.
They had issues with Whitehead's tackling last year.
Yeah.
I think Jets fans get on him about coverage. I think they're okay with him in coverage. I think it's the tackling that he missed a lot of tackles. He's kind of smaller. So I can see them moving on from Whitehead. I don't think they've made that decision yet, but we'll see what happens. And I think safety, you can't spend premium money at every single position, right? So I think safety is an area where they will try to go a little cheaper and save money. And if that means Ashton Davis and Chuck Clark are back, or if they go out and sign somebody else, I think they won't look to be spending premium money at that position right now.
Yeah, I agree, but I think Ashton Davis is a very solid player. Like I think he deserves to be back on a 1-year deal. I think Tony Adams had a very, very solid season. He had that incredible Jalen Hurts interception interception,
Yeah.
and then 2 plays into the Commanders game, he had what should have almost was a pick six. I mean, those are 2 solid safeties, and then Chuck Clark, I wanted to see what he could do, and then he tore his ACL in training camp. We've seen what Whitehead could do, so I see us bringing back Clark and Davis.
Yeah, I mean, Ashley Davis is an interesting one, right? So, um, you're probably too young to remember this guy, but some of your listeners might remember Eric Smith was a Jets safety back in like 2010, 2011. And Eric Smith was a guy who really, Ashley Davis reminds me of, great special teams player, would block punts, would make plays on special teams all the time, was their guy, was the special teams captain. Then he was also a safety, but he didn't play much safety. And then one year they decided to make him the starter, and it did not work. And the defense quarterback then, Mike Pettin, said to me, he said, Eric Smith is a guy you love at 300 plays on defense, but you don't want him playing 1,000 plays on defense. And I sort of feel like Ashton Davis is that, so you don't want to count on him. I think he's a nice backup safety that you can put in there, plug in there sometimes, and obviously he makes a ton of plays. Like, it's crazy the number of plays he makes versus how many plays he plays. So, and then Chuck Clark, we haven't seen him. I don't know where he is in terms of ACL recovery. So I think those are some big questions with him. But yeah, I do think, there could be changes at the safety position. That if you're looking at defense and where you could see some moves made, I think safety and I think interior defensive line. They have a lot of free agents there. They're going to have to make some moves there to pair somebody with Quinnen Williams.
Okay. I like it. 2 questions. Do you think we bring Solly back? Because I personally think we do. And second question, who do you think is our week 1 starting safety?
Oh, wow. The Solomon Thomas thing, I could see him back for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's maybe a question of price. Does he think he can go out and get more money? I don't see anyone paying him a lot of money. So I think he could be back. Obviously, he's a solid favorite, Ulbrich favorite. So I think he'd be back. Starting safety, I mean, Tony Adams will be one of them. I don't know who's going to be the other one, though. We're going to have to see what plays out there. I mean, I still can see Whitehead back. I don't think that's a foregone conclusion that he's gone. He's another one. What's he going to be looking for? What kind of money is he going to be looking for? I mean, that determines a lot of this. And we'll know a lot more in a month when we get, closer to free agency of what kind of money these guys are asking for. But I can see him back for sure, but I think it's too soon to predict who that other safety is going to be.
I agree, and the Jets still need to clear cap room before all of this could happen. I think some guys to look at, I mean, maybe cut Lakin. I don't know. I feel like they're not going to cut. I don't think they're going to cut Lakin. I think we can restructure Mosley for sure. I think we can restructure JFM and hopefully restructure Lakin or cut Lakin because we save like $8.5 million in cap room, but then we have to go out and pay someone to take Lakin's job. So it's kind of it goes both ways. I don't know. Personally, I think I want to cut Lakin. I mean, 13 pressures allowed against the Commanders is just not acceptable. Joe Douglas's biggest free agent fine in 2022. It's just not acceptable in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, at this price, it's not acceptable, right? If you can get him to come back at a pay cut, you get him to take a pay cut. I think you can live with Lakin Tomlinson again. You don't want to be counting on him as your number one offensive lineman, which is sort of what they were doing this year. So if you can surround him with some talent, and Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback, because I think also when we talk about the offensive line, Rodgers being the quarterback is going to make a big difference. He's going to adjust protections. He's going to recognize defenses a lot better than any of the guys who played quarterback this season for the Jets after he went down. So that helps. But yeah, in terms of restructures, you got to be careful, Connor. I mean, you're going to learn about credit cards someday, right? Credit cards are a dangerous thing because it helps you pay for something you can't pay for, but the bill always comes due at some point. And that's how contract restructures in the NFL work. You can finagle it. You can play with the cap, but then your cap in 2026 or 2027 is going to be affected by it. And, so I think they have to be careful how much restructuring they do. And guys have to be willing to. The restructures are easy because the guys are getting their money. But if you're going to ask guys to take a pay cut, then that's tough. Guys are going to have to agree to that and feel like they can't get a better contract somewhere else.
I agree, Mr. Costello. One final question before we let you go. Who was your Jets MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and Coach of the Year from the 2023 season?
Wow, that's a lot. Okay, let me think. I mean, I thought the MVP was still Quinnen Williams. I know Quincy got it from the team, but I thought Quinnen had an underrated year because you look at what the guys around him did, right? You look at what Jermaine Johnson did, Bryce Huff, Quentin Jefferson. Um, I feel like I'm forgetting somebody else that they had like career years in terms of sacks, and I think that's because Quinnen draws so much attention. I have a feeling when offenses play against the Jets, they say, okay, number 95, we're going to get 4 hands on him on every play, and that creates opportunities for other people. So I think Quinnen is still the MVP of this team. Offensive player of the year, I mean, Bryce and Garrett both have a case there. I'd probably go Garrett, slight edge over Bryce, but because I thought Garrett, he just did some amazing things with poor quarterback play, where he had to overcome the quarterback, and he did that. And I mean, his week 1 catch for a touchdown was one of the most unbelievable catches I've ever seen. He has the long one against Dallas. I just thought he played consistently well all year, so I would go with him. Defensive player of the year, I'll go so many differences I give it to Quinn. I probably defensive player of the year, I'll go Quincy then. I thought Quincy really dominated, especially the first half of the season. I thought he tailed off a little bit, but Quincy's an amazing story of just, getting cut and then coming in, and he's really worked on his game, and thought he was out of control the first 2 years, like first year, second year, he would be out of control a little bit, and he really harnessed his game this year and didn't have any of those big misses that he had. What was it? You asked me a coach?
Coach of the year, any coach on the staff.
Coach of the year. That's tough. Definitely not on offense. So let me think. I'd probably go Aaron Whitecotton because I mean that defensive line dominated, right? And like, yes, they have like Quinnen Williams, who was the number 3 overall pick, but he's also getting a lot out of Bryce Huff. He's getting a lot out of JFM. You got a lot of Quentin Jefferson, like guys that were not, projected to be these stars. So I think Whitecotton would be the one for me.
Thank you for joining us. I was interested in asking you that question because I asked Jake Asman that question. I was interested on the coach of the year, especially. I was thinking Whitecotton. I was thinking he was going to say Whitecotton all along, and he said Brent Boyer, and that was an interesting one.
That's an interesting one. I mean, yeah, Boyer had a good year. That he definitely did, but I just, I look at what Whitecotton did on the defensive line, and they were dominant.
Mr. Costello, thank you for joining us. Oh, Brian, thank you for joining us. Any final thoughts?
No, good luck with this, Connor. I have a 14-year-old who's still sleeping, so I told him you're doing work, right? He's still sleeping away. So
thank you for joining us. First time on the show, hopefully not the last. Hope to have you back on. Thank you for making time for this, though, as we know you're very busy. So thank you for joining us.
No problem. Thanks, Connor.
Great interview with Mr. Brian Costello of the New York Post. Guys, I'm gonna keep the stream going. If you wanna keep the stream going, we can. I'll pin a comment in the chat if you guys would like to call into the show. Here. Interesting. He said he would rule out a tag and trade with Bryce Huff. Interesting. I've asked a lot of people that question, and they all said they thought it was possible. So interesting to get his opinion. Great interview. Great writer for the New York Post. Thank you, PD. Guys, there's a comment in the chat if you'd like to call into the show. Interesting, because I personally think there's a chance that Bryce Huff gets tagged and traded, but he knows a lot more than we do, so. Interesting. Question. Who is the Jets' most underrated player of the year from the 2023 season? My opinion, I'm giving it to Conklin. I think Conklin, I saw a tweet from PFF today. Who's your most underrated player of the year? And I said Tyler Conklin. A lot of people did also, but I personally think Tyler Conklin, I don't think he gets enough love from the Jets community. I think he had a very, very solid year. If you're just joining, guys, we just wrapped up with the interview with Brian Costello. So if you guys want to go back and watch that, but I'll keep the stream going if you guys want. I know Woody confirmed that Salah was staying, but there's been so many reports coming out, maybe saying that Salah might be on the hot seat. I personally don't see him going at all. Like I think he's here one more year, 100%. But some people are saying he's on the hot seat in jeopardy of losing his job. I just don't see that. PD Jermaine Johnson. Wow, that's an interesting one. I feel like underrated. Jermaine had a great year, but I feel like he got a lot of support from the Jets. So I would say underrated. I'd say not most valuable, but a key piece on this team. Where could you see Zach Wilson landing? One final question before I end the stream. Where do you guys think Zach Wilson will land? Steve Young saying he thinks he's going to go to the Rams, that that's the place to be. Personally, I can't see him going to the Rams, but it's what people are saying, so I don't know. Steve Young, let me try to pull up the tweet. I mean, reason I can't see Zach Wilson to the Rams is just because Mike LaFleur is quarterback coach, I believe, for the Rams. So, all right, pull up the tweet. The place he needs to be is in LA. Very, very interesting. Again, like I said, don't see him going there just because LaFleur is there. I think he might go. I feel like there's a chance he goes to the Chiefs. I have a feeling there's a chance that he signs with the Chiefs, but thank you guys for watching. If you're just joining, you can go back. Brian Costello joined the show of the New York from the New York Post. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, JETS Jets Jets.